Hey guys, Philip from the Honda Resource. Thanks for joining me on this episode. So today we're going to be doing the reseal on the B18C1. This video is kind of long, so if you're interested in a certain part, you can scroll on the timeline and you can see the different gaskets that I'm installing, just so if they're like you want to do oil pan gasket or valve seals, or you want to do the timing set, just scroll on until you see which one you want to go to. Also, if you're just not sure what section you're looking for, you can go down to the description and I have it all labeled down there too, what's what. There'll also be part numbers in the description. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. Like I said, it's kind of long, but a lot of good information. So thanks for watching this video. Make sure you go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the rest of this series. This is just video 2. So we'll be doing video 3 on doing the wiring to make it work right. And then we'll be doing the install. So you know, just be sure to check out the rest of the series. Thanks for checking this video out, and hope you enjoy it. All right, so I guess today we're going to start tearing apart the B18C1. I'm going to clean it up real good before I even start messing with it. You can see it's pretty filthy. So I'm going to clean it up with some Zip Industrial Purple real quick and pressure wash it and see how much better it will look. I'm going to basically reseal the whole engine, put new valve seals in it, valve cover gasket, Vtec Gaskets, Distributor O-Ring, rear main seal, cam seals, crank seal, timing belt water pump, oil pan gasket, get a new header, valve cover gasket. I guess without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so I just finished washing the motor, and it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was. Most of the paint on the valve cover went ahead and come off too, so that's going to save me a lot of time from having to strip it to be able to repaint it, because it was in poor shape to begin with. So you see, overall it came out fairly clean. Like I said, it's not perfect by no means. There's still dirty spots on it. It was caked on there pretty good, but that's at least a good start to where I don't have to deal with a ton of gunk while I'm resealing this engine. Alright, and while I was letting some of that degreaser soak, I went ahead and drug up the EG Hatch that the swap is going in. So this is the car that is going to be GSR swapped. I know I showed it briefly on the first video, but this is actually it. It's a fairly clean car. It's not perfect by any means. Like I said, we do have new coilovers, camber kits, and we're going to put all the Integra brakes on it. Get the GSR swap completely wired, just like it came factory, with knock sensor, IAB, all that stuff. So if you're in the market to do a GSR swap on EG Hatch, this is going to be your go-to series. Alright, so this is most of the parts that I've purchased to get this in tip-top shape and get it into the hatch there. So there's some stuff I bought that necessarily probably didn't need, such as the coilovers, the header, you know, little stuff like that. But it's gonna have coilovers. The clutch in this motor is bad, so this is a used clutch, but it's in very, very good shape. 6-foot sprung clutch. So put that in there. Got a DC header. It was used. It did have a crack in it that I welded up. I got a brand new adjustable test pipe so that I can make sure that it mates up to the stainless exhaust that's already on the car. And we're going to be putting the Integra front and rear brakes on there, and I just went ahead and bought some new ball joints for the front Integra spindles. That's our new axle, because their other axle was busted. OBD1 P72 ECU Virgin. Yeah, man. Shout out to Mark Dutton for that, man. We got New radiator hoses. There's new torque mounts in that box. A new Gates timing kit. Valve cover gasket. Camber kits. They're used but in good shape, so we're going to put those on there. That box right there is Vtec Gaskets. Got new spark plugs for it. New cam plug. That's Distributor O-Ring. Cam seals. Rear main seal. The valve seals are in those bags, and I have a crankshaft seal in here somewhere too that I gotta locate. So it's probably in this box. I gotta dig one out. But yeah, we got quite a few parts to put on this thing, and hopefully we can get all these new gaskets and timing set and stuff on this motor and get old Jesse set. Alright, so I got the engine into the shop, and now I'm just going to take the transmission off of it. I went ahead and took the B pipe off of the header, or off the stock manifold, just so I can get this transmission off. So tonight I just want to get the transmission off, and then I'm going to call it a night. So if you're new to this and you're taking your transmission off, the most of all the bell housing bolts are 17. The T-bracket on the back, the bottom two are 19. If yours still has the little brackets that I took off on the bottom down here, little supports, those are 12 on top, and then 17 where it goes into the trans. And then last but not least is the 14mm bolt on the bottom of the starter. So just the bottom starter bolt. Chunks of clutch disc. Wow. All right, so your pressure plate bolts are 12.10mm. It's like 6 of them. So the flywheel side looks fine. Pressure plate side, gone. Oh boy. Alright, so on this part, since we're already here doing the clutch, I'm gonna go ahead and do the rear main seal. These bolts here are a 17mm 12 point. They're pretty shallow well head, so the actual socket that I use, I actually filed down to where I got a good bite on all the surfaces of the head, because typically these 17mm 12 point sockets are got like a little angle where the actual I guess where the bite of the socket is. So I just ground mine down to where it's right there on it and gets a good bite. Because if you have like just a typical socket, a lot of times they like to round off the bolt heads, and it's no bueno. Pilot bearing feels good. So the rear main seal is here. It looks like it may have been seeping just a little bit, so we're gonna go ahead and get it swapped out. All right, so on this, I just went with all the MAHLE gaskets, M-A-H-L-E, MAHLE. These have been pretty good gaskets just overall. If you want the OEM part number, I'll put that here at the bottom of the screen, and I'll also put it in the description. This actual part number here is this. So, to pop out this old gasket, I just usually use a flathead screwdriver. Hopefully you guys can see this, but I just kind of get at the bottom of the seal and just kind of get in there, and it'll pop it out. All right, piece of cake. All right, and so on all your OEM gaskets, they're all going to have a little bit of grease in this groove. You see this groove right here? They'll all have a little bit of grease in there just to keep it lubed up. And so what I like to do is just, I've got some high temp grease, multi-complex, multi-ditty complex grease. And I just like to get a little bit of grease like on my fingertips, kind of like so. And just kind of put some in that groove along the all the way around, just to keep it good and lubed up for years to come. All right, don't take a whole lot. So there you can see I just got a little bit in there all the way around. Not a whole lot, like I said. All right, and then just make sure that the seal gets good and started. Sometimes you can kind of put it in there by hand. I just got a rubber mallet here. Try to put it on there evenly all the way around. All right, and then I can just take a 3/8 drive socket or 3/8 extension and just kind of walk it around to make sure it's even and seated. Pretty much, that's it. Straightforward. Now I'm just gonna wipe this back up, make sure it's clean, and we'll get the flywheel back on and get the clutch installed. All right, and also if you're installing a new clutch and you're gonna replace the pilot bearing, little bearing here in the center of the flywheel, you have to do that with the flywheel off because it actually comes in from the back side. This one feels good, it's not notchy, it spins freely, so it's good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this flywheel back on. All right, another thing I'm gonna do, I fell over there. Another thing I'm gonna do is just take a little bit of red Loctite. I guess this really just comes from the racer side of me, doing disc clutches and stuff. And just gonna put just a dot of red Loctite on the threads for the flywheel. Over the years of doing OEM clutches, I haven't really had much issue with the flywheel trying to back out, but after some issues racing, I have had issues, so just like to do it just precautionary. All right, so now I got all those started by hand, just zip them down, go in crisscross pattern. All right, so most all new clutches come with an alignment tool. It's this little tool here. All right, goes into the clutch disc. All right, and if you look, you see how it has this part protruding out here? This side always goes out away from the engine. So it goes on there like so, lines it up, and then take our pressure plate. And it's got some little pins sticking out. There's 3 of them around the clutch flywheel. If you can see them or not. A little pin here, and a pin right down there. Those only go onto the pressure plate one way, so you may have to just keep rotating the pressure plate. But you see the little hole right beside the bolt hole, right here. That's the ones they're going to go into. So you just rotate it until you get them all to where they'll go on. Lines up perfectly there. So you just have to rotate it until you get it to where it goes, and you can start all your bolts. And again, we're going to tighten this in a crisscross pattern. And see, I didn't go down all the way with it yet. So. I'm just kind of walking it in. All right, I've been doing this for a long time, and I never port these on these stock style. The ones for the like twin disc, triple disc, I do torque, but these factory style, I never torque them. If you want the torque specs, I'll put it below. Doing a solid for you guys. But anyways, that's the clutch. The clutch is installed now. You saw after I got it on, I just pulled up my alignment tool and voila, done. So I guess now I'll just lift it on up and we'll go ahead and knock out the oil pan gasket since we're here. So we got to drain the oil out first because it's still got oil in it. And I've got a drain pan here beneath it. The drain plug is a 17 millimeter. I'll drain all that old oil out, and then we'll get back to this video after the oil drains. All right, so the oil has pretty much stopped coming out of the pan now, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my drain plug back in. I don't ever recommend tightening the drain plugs up with an impact, especially on these, especially on aluminum pan. This is steel pan, so they're not as prone to stripping. If you have aluminum pan, man, the drain plugs is always stripping. Can't tell you how many aluminum pans I've had to replace or repaired due to stripped drain plugs. So now I just got to take out this row of 10 millimeter bolts and nuts all the way around the pan here and pull the pan off. Alrighty, and then we'll just take a screwdriver, put it in between here and pry it out. Make sure you still got your oil pan under it because it will make a mess. There's still some oil in the pan, so I'm just draining it out. So a lot of times the oil pan gasket is stuck to the oil pan, like this one is. It's hard, they get brittle, and they're really hard to get off. I'm gonna take this one off real quick, and I'll show you how I do those. If you look up here in the corner, there's a video up there showing how I do this using just a butane torch. So I'm just gonna go ahead and knock it out real quick, and we'll get back to it in just a second. All right, so now that I've got the gasket off, I just like to wipe down this surface and then take some brake cleaner, clean out the oil pan just in case any dirt got in there. This is just a trash box I have. It's got some old rags and stuff in it. So just try to ensure that we have a good clean mating surface and that there's no major dirt or anything in the oil pan. So that's all we're doing here. All right, here goes my little sales pitch for Felpro Perma-Dry Plus oil pan gasket. I push these every time I do an oil pan gasket on a B series. I'm not sponsored by Felpro, but I like to tell you what's good and what's not. And these right here are the best B series oil pan gasket on the market, period. No questions asked. Make sure it's the Perma-Dry Plus. Make sure it's the plus. Don't get the regular Felpro gasket. It's not rigid. These are a rigid gasket. They have a metal layer in the middle. You can't over torque them per se. You'd break the bolts before you over torqued it. These don't squish out. They don't leak. They're reusable. They're just overall excellent. So I've never had an issue with one of these. The only time I've seen an issue with one of these, it was an installer error. I didn't install it. He just brought it here because he had bought one of these gaskets and installed it incorrectly. And by doing that, what I mean is I'll show you what he did. An OEE style gasket or any other gasket that's aftermarket, usually they have a two little metal rings that go right around these two studs that are on the oil pan gasket right here by the flywheel. And sometimes those little metal rings get stuck on there. So if you're installing one of these and you're just taking off your old gasket, make sure they don't have the little metal rings still on there. So what he had done is he left one of those metal rings on there and then tried to mate up the new gasket, and it was still leaking oil, and that's why. All right, so in your oil pan gasket kit, it comes with these little gray pieces, and what they do is they thread up into like one of your bolt holes, and then you can put 4 on here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can snap the oil pan up on there. Or you put the gasket on, and then snap the oil pan gasket on, or snap the oil pan on. I tend not to do it that way. I mean, it works doing it like this, but it's just extra time that's not really required per se. So, all right. So on the oil pan gasket, it comes with the gasket, and those gray pieces I was showing you. It also comes with some black RTV. So to see where the RTV goes, they've put little. Let's see if I can get to focus. See this little area here with those that little area there is where some RTV goes. It's usually in the corners. So some goes here, and some goes here. So it only goes on those areas like that, okay? And that only goes towards the block. It don't go any towards the oil pan. You see on this side, the oil pan side, it don't have any spots like that. All right, so no RTV goes on the side that goes towards the oil pan. And so those little spots are like right here, right there, right there, and right there. You can see I didn't put a ton of it on there. That's all it takes. So then to install the oil pan, I've already cleaned that surface with a shop towel so it's good and clean. Put it on here like this, and then I just start where the little studs are. Start a nut on those, and it'll hold it in place. So one on the front, one on the back, and it'll sit there. And then I can just start the rest of them, and then we can tighten it all down. Typically, all 10 millimeter stuff on a Honda is 8.7 foot-pounds of torque. So if you're the torque kind of guy, 8.7 foot-pounds. I just snug these down with my little impact until I feel like they're good. Like I said, you can't really over torque these like you could a normal gasket. So, all right, so I got all those torqued to 8.7 micro ugga-duggas, and they're all good to go. So now, I guess I'll let the engine down and see where what I want to do next as far as doing the reseal on this bad boy. All right, so here on the manifold, I'm going to be putting a DC header on here, but you can see like this bolt is broke off. I guess it's broke off, maybe it just don't have a bolt in it. I'm assuming it's broke. This one's broke. And a couple of these, like they're maybe going to break when I try to take them out. I don't know. Well, that one's actually coming out by hand. But see like how this one has like a spacer in there. That one's not all the way in. So probably going to have some issues to work through on this, but we'll get all that taken care of as soon as we get this manifold off. All right, so that one is broke, and that's easy to get off because it's sticking out. This one does have one broke off in it, and it's down the head a little bit, so I'm going to try to clean that up and see if maybe I can weld a washer to it or something and see if we can get it out of there. But yeah, those that are broke off like that are pretty easy. You can just take a pair of pliers and turn them out usually. A pair of vice grips, or in this case, I got a pair of just channel locks. I may have to weld a nut to that one too to get it out, but we'll get it out. All right, let's see what we can do here. So on that one, the stud that was sticking out, it didn't want to come out with the pliers, so I just put a nut that's bigger and the stud over it, and I'm just gonna try to weld that nut to the stud, and then use a socket to turn it out of there. Let's see if that'll hold it now. There you go. And now this one over here is going to be a little more challenging because it's actually broke off in the head. So I'm probably going to have to, I spray some brake cleaner over here just to try to clean it up some, but I'm going to try to weld on the head of the the bolt some to get it built out, and then weld a little washer onto that. Good thing is the aluminum don't really, the metal with the welder don't really stick to the aluminum, so hopefully we can get that out no problem. I've done this quite a few times, and hopefully this will be another notch on the belt. Now we got a little piece built out there. Now I just need to find a washer, weld a washer to it. And one of my favorite things to use as far as for the washer on these is just an old valve cover grommet. You just put it like so, and then just weld it, that little tit to the to this washer, and then we'll weld a nut to this washer and see if it'll back out. All right, so now we've got the washer tacked onto that little piece sticking out. And this ain't always foolproof, you know, it don't always work the first time, but let's see what we can do. Success on the first try, baby. That's what I like. That's awesome. Heck yeah. So, see there? I got that piece out. Even though it was broken off, not even flush with the head, it was down inside of it just a little bit. So now, you see, like, we can get another bolt and it'll thread right in. Look at that. That's awesome. Good news, good news, good news. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and bolt the header on just so I'll have something to put my straps back on to lift it up with. So some of my natural lighting in the back has diminished because it's getting dark, but I have a another stud here. I'm gonna try to install that real quick. Oh, Jesus. Knee on these old bolts don't feel good. All right, so back to installing our bolts. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get the valve cover pulled off now, and then start taking off the timing covers and stuff. I put the timing set on it, and put on some new valve seals, which are up under the valve cover anyway. So I guess also you can see that this stud here is broke, so I'm going to replace that stud while we're apart. Also put on a new valve cover gasket and new spark plugs. So let's get to it. All right, so the valve cover bolts are all 10 millimeter. So I'm just pop them off real quick. Whew, this valve cover gasket is hard as a brick. You can tell it's got some miles on it, but it's still run good, and it did smoke. So we're gonna put valve seals in it. So we have to disassemble everything up here anyway to do that. So I guess since we are where we are, we'll go ahead and do the timing set on this portion. So well, I say timing set. We're not gonna be able to complete the timing set until we do the valve seals, because I take the camshafts out to do the valve seals. So let's go ahead and take off the crank pulley. All right, so I'll go ahead and loosen this top alternator nut. Loosen the bottom one too. It's 14 on the bottom, 12 on top. Let's get this belt off of there. And then to get this crank pulley off, I use this Lyle weighted socket. These are really nice. And if you need one of those, I can probably put one of those part numbers in the description, but then I just use my Milwaukee impact. Takes it right off, no problem. Take this crank pulley off. Gotta make sure I don't lose my cotter, not my cotter pin, my dadgum Woodruff key. All right, then we need to take this plug covers off. So there's a 10. Should take the upper one off. These two are the longer ones. All the other ones are short. So we got one here, one here, one here. It's supposed to be one here, but it's not there. And then, let's see. There's one right here. I think that's all of them. Yeah. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the lower cover. All right. So next thing is put this bolt back in. All right, and then use 19 millimeter and rotate it counterclockwise. Let me get some light over there, guys. So what we gotta do is on the pulleys, they say up right here, right there. All right, and they got a little tick mark on them where they'd be level with the head. So there and there. There and there. All right, just a little tick mark on the pulley. If you've ever messed with one of these, you know what I mean. So then we turn it counterclockwise. All right, about right there. That's top dead center. So what we're looking for is these marks here to line up here, and it basically lines up with the deck of the head. So we're good there. So now I'm just going to zip this bolt back out. And I'm going to take the tensioner off. 14 millimeter. All right, now let me slide my belt off. All right, so then we got to take off these two. They're both 14s. All right, and then the key on these is like a little half moon shape. So you have to put them in the camshaft first before you can slide the pulley on. And you have to take the pulley off before you can get the key out. Both of these pulleys are the same. They're no different one from the other. B20, B16, B18C, B18C5, all the same. All right, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and take off this upper cover. This is a little 10 millimeter over here. That's it. And then we gotta take off this crank fluctuator here. This is 2 10s. Technically, we don't have to put it back on this motor because we're going to be running OBD1. And we'll need to slide this off to put a crank seal on it. Just be careful that you don't break these ears off. The OBD1 version is a little bit different than this. It just has like 2 of the washers like that goes on the outside. It just has 2 of those, one on the inside and then one on the outside. Alright, so I guess spray some penetrating oil on it before you start messing with it. It's got a little key in that too. So we can go ahead and zip this water pump off. Just some 10 millimeter bolts around it. It's probably going to make a mess. That off. Alrighty. Water pump's off. Now I'll just take a straight edge razor blade and just clean up the surface, just to make sure it's good and clean. Dry that off. And we can go ahead and stick the new water pump on there. And the Gates kits are pretty good. They're probably not my favorite due to the water pump, but not to say the water pumps are terrible. I've just had a Gates water pump fail on me in the past when it was relatively brand new, so I kind of prefer Daco, but I just bought the Gates this go around. Two are longer than the other two, or other three. I think it's this one, yeah. The one right here is the longer one, and I think it's this one right here is the longer one. And then shorter ones here, and here, and here. Don't have to put any kind of silicone on the water pump gasket. It'll seal itself. Again, on these, if you're the torquing type, 8.7 foot-pounds. Alright, so apparently I don't have the crank seal here, so I'm going to get one of those. Thought I had one here. So, I guess what I can do now is just start tearing this down to do that, the valve seals. And also, while it's apart, we'll be able to do this crankshaft or the camshaft plug seal, and I might as well go ahead and do the distributor O-Ring too while we're here. So I guess pull these Vtec rails off and get started with it. So we need a 12 millimeter. Pull all these Vtec rails off. Then we need 10 millimeter to pull the caps off the ends. This is that broken stud from the valve cover, just right here. 10 millimeter takes it off. I'm gonna change that out. Alright, so these just pull up. I may be wrong, but I think they're the same for each side, so I don't have to really worry about mixing them up too bad. Alright, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pop this distributor bolt off of it right here. 12 millimeter. Mark this distributor where it's at, just so when I put it back on, I'll put it back in the same spot. Because despite having as much stuff as I do, I don't have a timing light. This is an investment I definitely need to make. I've been saying that for years and just haven't made that jump to get that yet for some reason. Probably because I only need it when I need it and I don't think about it. So I'll take off all these caps. These things are numbered and they go a certain order. I just thought of something else. I need to go get another O-ring for this. This cap here has a little O-ring under it, right here. So I'm gonna grab another one of those from Honda too before I put this back together. But yeah, now I got these here. Pull this camshaft out. So what we gotta do is, oh, there's your cam plug. It was over here. Pull that out. If you wanted to, you could also do, pull the head off to do this, but, I don't feel like buying another head gasket and stuff, so the head gasket seems to be fine. And rather than pull the head, just do it this way. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out all these spark plugs. I have new spark plugs for it too. Which there's Autolite crap in it anyway, so don't put Autolite spark plugs in your daggone Honda. That's like one of the worst things you can do for it. 2 and 3 are down. Cylinders 2 and 3 are down because the crankshaft's at TDC. So that with the crankshaft at TDC, it's going to have the pistons on 1 and 4 all the way up. So I just got some rope. It's pretty thin rope, but it works good for this. But I'll just go through here and put it down through the hole where the spark plug goes. This is probably not the most ideal way to do it, especially with the motor already out of the car. If the motor was in the car and you didn't want to tear the motor all apart, this is definitely the easier way to go without having to pull the head. Alright, so you can see I'm almost to the end of my rope, so I'm going to leave this much sticking out. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, you can see I've got my socket here on my crank pulley. So I'm going to turn it until it stops. Alright, so stop right there. So because that rope is in there, what that rope is doing is hitting the bottom of the head, and it's going to hold those valves up where they don't fall down. Like I said, we'll flip these up. All right, and we're going to flip the intake ones up too, because we're going to do all of the valve seals. All right, so this is the tool that I use. It's also made by Lyle, just like the crank pulley socket was. So it's a valve keeper remover and installer, and that's the part number. So if you're interested in one of these, that's the information on it. So I think this kit's about $55. One's bigger than the other one. You can see how that one's bigger than this one. I don't think I've ever used this one on a Honda application. It's always the smaller one. All right, so this is the tool, like I said, and so this is the install setup, and the removal is this setup. Basically, it's just this tube, and it has some magnets in there, and those magnets grab the keepers. Watch. So we put it over the top of the valve, right? You can hit this with a hammer, your hand, or whatever, depending on the valve pressure. But see, it's got that, and then the keepers are right there. You can usually fish those out with like a stick magnet or like a gasket pick. All right, so then we pull our spring out, and our valve seal is right there. So I usually like to do these kind of one at a time, just so I don't get any of them mixed up. And so to pull our valve seal out, I use this tool. You can see it has those little grippers on it, on the end. I don't know where I got this right off the bat, but if I can come up with it, I will definitely link it for you guys. Let me move this back a little bit, just so I have room to work. All right, so I take these, right, go down there and grab the seal, twist it, and sometimes they're harder to come out than others. There it goes. Alright, so that's a valve seal. Alright. And so this tool just goes over it and pulls it up off the stem, the valve stem, or the guide, rather. I'm sorry. Pulls it up off the guide. So then we just got to install our new ones. So they are different sizes, so make sure you're installing intake on intake and exhaust on exhaust. These are different, so this is the intake ones, and that's the part number for the, again, MAHLE Gaskets. I really like this brand of gaskets, they're pretty good. But that's the part number for the intake, and these are the ones for the exhaust. The 27 is exhaust, 26 is intake. All right, so this is a new one. That's what they look like. All right, and a 10 millimeter usually fits on them perfect. So a 10 millimeter and an extension is what you need to use to install these. Get that back focused. All right, so what I like to do is just take my hand and kind of push it as far as I can, and then get my socket, put it on there, and just may use a hammer. See, I'm not hitting it hard, just kind of tapping it down on there. And I believe that one's done. I believe that one's done. So then put the spring back on. All right, so I'm reinstalling the keeper. We have a little top, and we have the two little pieces here. You have to put those back into the top, and there's a certain way they go back in there. They're thin on one end and then thicker on the other end. So the thin end goes in like that. Let's see how that is. All right, so then put that back on top just like that. And then we'll use this end right here. You put it right in the center of that. Shove down on it, and it puts it right at home. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just put a white mark on that one so I know I've done that one, and then I'll just repeat the process with the rest of these four, or so the other three on that cylinder, and then we'll be able to pull the rope out. All right, so now I've got all four of those replaced. So where before I was turning my crankshaft clockwise, now I can turn it back counterclockwise and take that off the piston, or take the pressure off the piston. So, and then once we back it up, we'll be able to pull the rope out. Sometimes it does like to stick. If it gets stuck under a valve, just bump the top of the valve and it'll come on out. You see the rope came right on out, no problem. So, like I said, if it does get stuck, just bump the top of the valve. Usually you can tell if it's stuck on an intake or exhaust. But all those did really good. So that's basically how you do it. So now I'm just gonna knock out the rest of them in the morning. I'm gonna call it a night for now, and but number 2 is already done. So now tomorrow, I'll knock out 1, 3, and 4. Heck yeah. All right, so it's the next day now, and I'm just gonna go ahead and finish up these valve seals. I just went to Honda and picked up the new little O-ring that goes right here under the cam cap, and also picked up a crank seal. Honda didn't have it in stock, so I went up having to get that at AutoZone. But I do have a new crank seal, so I'm gonna get started, put it back on time lapse, and knock out the rest of these valve seals real quick. Alright, so I finally got all those valve seals reinstalled. You know, this isn't the most daunting task to do, but it is time consuming. Just having to do 4 per each cylinder. Again, it's not terrible, but it's can definitely be time consuming. So I guess now what I'm going to do is just get a cloth and wipe down all these camshaft journals here, and then put the cams and stuff back in. I will adjust the valves and stuff after I get all the cams in before I put the valve cover back on. Even though all the valves are in the same place they were before, I don't know the last time this motor had a valve adjustment, so I'll go ahead and knock that out too. But that pretty much concludes doing the valve seals. Alright, so I started putting the camshafts in, and I apparently didn't turn on the camera when I first started putting them in, but like I was saying, when I was disassembling all this stuff, the cam caps are numbered. So basically they, like these say like E1 or I1, so intake, exhaust, and then so 2, 3, 4, 5, and these are numbered as well, like I5 and E5. So these have a little number right here. It says like number 2, and it points that way. So just make sure it points towards the front of the motor. All right. And then also, always replace a little O-ring that's here, and this is the part number for that. It goes under the number 3 cap. There's a little dowel pin there, so it just kind of goes around that. And then like that. And then I put some Lucas assembly lube on my camshafts, just a little bit, just so they're not dry. And now I put these Vtec rails back on. Just clean off all this stuff, make sure I don't have any trash on there. I went ahead and also took the distributor out. I got to replace the distributor O-ring anyways, just a couple 12mm bolts on that. And before I put this on, I'm gonna go ahead and put our cam cap on. So the some of these, they have two different variations of cam caps. So they have this style, which is like the OEM would be like a P30 style, and they have the P72, which has become more common now. It's kind of hard to find the P30 ones, but this is a P30 style. It's very less likely to leak, and that's the FelPro part number. So if you're interested in that, you can look up that FelPro part number, and you can get one of these. I'll show you what the other one looked like too if I can find it. Let me see. So this is like the P72 variation. It just clips in. Serviceability, this one is much easier because you don't have to disassemble much to replace the P72 style, to whereas the P30, you actually have to take the cam cap off. But again, the P30 is a whole lot less likely to leak. So what I'm going to do now is just going to put a little black silicone around the seal, just around it, all the way around, and put it in here just to make sure, help ensure that it don't leak. I don't really think it would be leaking, but just to be safe. So you can see I just put a little thin line in there just to help it seal, and then just drop it right down in there, and then we can put our cam cap back on. All right, and then we put these Vtec rails back on. Our two shorter of the 10mm bolts go here, and our two longer ones go here. Alright, so I'm gonna ease these down with the my little electric impact. I'm not torquing them down with this, I'm just taking out the gap just so I'm not spending a lot of time doing it by hand. You'll see that I don't really torque a lot of stuff, but when it comes to engine internals, I do torque those. So. All right, so on these bolts here, the 12mm ones, they're all 20 foot-pounds, and then the 10 millimeters are 7.8 foot-pounds. So start with these. I get my torque wrench set on 20. See, I didn't torque them down with that impact. So. Also, you'll notice I'm working from the inside out, so do the same on yours. And according to the diagram I looked up, this is the proper torque sequence. So if it's not right, don't flame me. Torque these last few, the 10 millimeters. Be careful with the 10s, they will break. I've had to fish some of these out of the head before and it's not fun. Alright, got all those torqued down. Alright, so now I guess we can continue over to doing the timing. Alright, so I need to go ahead and take this crank bolt back out. And I'm going to take flathead and pop this crank seal out. I just like to go between the seal and the crankshaft and then just kind of pry it out, and it pops out right out usually. So there's that. And this is the seal I picked up. I actually got this AutoZone. I'll put the OEM part number in the description, but that's the part number for this particular one right here. All right. Put a little grease in this one, like I did the rear main seal. All right. I like to twist it too a little bit just so it don't lip until it just, usually it almost goes on there perfect. Just use a 3/8 extension, bump it where it's flush with the oil pump. And that's that. And this is the camshaft seals. That's the OEM part number. Just gonna go ahead and put those on too while I'm right here doing these seals. And also you can see, like when I was talking about on those other seals, see how it has the grease already in it? So no need to put grease in this. And both cam seals are the same part number. Hopefully you can see how I was turning that until it basically just started itself. Just again taking my extension and getting it to where it's just basically flush with the head surface here. walking it around. Alright. Do the other one real quick. Put my little woodruff key back in there. I may have to put the woodruff key in there after the fact. Yeah. Fit right up. Go ahead and put this crank signal back on. Alright. Go ahead and clip it back on. And we're not using this crank signal on this application because we're going to be running OBD1, but hey, it's there anyway. Alright, so hopefully that's going to be a good angle there. So we got this on, crank signal wire, water pump is on, and now we got our new tensioner. So hook that up there, and then this little point right here is where tensioner goes on that. Put the bolt back in there. Alright, so we don't want to tighten that all the way down because we still want to have some adjustment for whenever we put our new timing belt on. And then we'll torque it down once we get the timing belt on. So now we need to put the upper timing cover back on. Put it on before we put our cam gears back on. Just a 110mm bolt. And then on these, remember it has a little half moon key. I don't even remember the daggum name of it right now. I don't remember the name, but put the little key in there first. Make sure it's level in there on the camshaft. Move this up a little bit. All right, and then put your pulley on there. Just like so. There's a bolt. And it doesn't matter as far as the pulley, which one goes where. They're the same. Oh, this is called woodruff key. That's what it's called, woodruff key. On this, there's a 14. All right, so then to line it up, we got a little pointer on the oil pump right here. And then we got a line right here on this pulley. So the pulley essentially is right here. So we need to turn that just a smidge. Just stick our bolt back in it to do that. Not too much.
Do you want me to hold it so you can do it?
Nah. Alright, so it's pretty much lined up there. And then for the camshafts, alright, so for the camshafts, we got to have these two dots pretty much lined up. Sometimes they'll want to move on you and whatnot, so maybe we'll get lucky. Alright, so that's pretty much worked out. Maybe you can see everything I'm doing there. Alright, so I like to start on the crankshaft first. Alright, go ahead and put it around the tensioner and around the water pump, like that. Alright, and then kind of pull it tight over here. And it's fairly tight, and it gets lined up here. And then don't quite put it all the way on there. Leave it hanging off just a hair. And then I just pull up on the belt. You may have to turn the pulley just a hair. Alright, and then make sure it's all the way pushed up on there by hand. And then on the crank pulley, just turn it just a little bit where you get good tension on the front. And then once it's good and tensioned on the front, go ahead and tighten up the tensioner. I also like to kind of push up on the tensioner by hand while I'm doing it, just to put the extra little bit on it. And you could also use like a flathead. You can put it right up under the little tang over here and pick up a tang. So we got good tension on both sides of the belt, and that's pretty much all it is to that. All right, so then we can. Yeah, I started back. So then we got to put our little washer on. It's on the outside. It's concave. Make sure the concave's facing out. Okay. All right, and then our. The great thing about the B series, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. The great thing about the B series, if you do forget this, it's not as big a deal because it will go through the timing cover. Now on some of the other motors, like a D series or something, it won't go through, and it's a royal pain. But you can see it'll go right on a B series. So shout out to Honda for that. But make sure you go ahead and put that on before, and just save yourself any headache. So now I'm just putting on my little 10mm bolts. The upper timing cover with the 2 long bolts. Alright, and then the harmonic balancer. I'm going to go ahead and put the little Woodruff key in that. And tighten it down with our Milwaukee impact with a wild socket. And I'm going to go ahead and put the alternator belt back on. Alright, so kind of the last gaskets until we do the valve cover gasket that I'm going to be doing is the Vtec Gaskets and the Distributor O-Ring. You can see the distributor's already off from when I did the cam caps, but it's pretty easy to take off. It's just 3 12mm bolts that you can kind of see where they go on here. So I did mark it before I took it off, just to keep up with where the timing was set at. Let's see, get some brake cleaner. All right, so on the distributor O-ring, what we're replacing is this O-ring right here. It's pretty prone to leaking, and they get hard and brittle. You'll see that this one's already breaking, coming off. So it's just a little O-ring here. They're pretty cheap, but they are prone to leaking. And this is our replacement gasket. This one is a Victor Reigns, which is also like MAHLE, the same stuff. They call it a distributor mounting gasket. That's the part number for it though. Maybe you can see that. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen too if you need it. So, it's just a little gasket and just kind of rolls over the end of it here. So this, and it just goes into that groove right here, just like so. All right, so on the distributor, if the motor's at top dead center, this line, maybe you can see this line right here, it corresponds with these dots. That means the distributor's at top dead center. This motor is pretty much at top dead center from where I just did the timing set. So I put it there, and then I had scratched up here on the cap, on the cam cap and the distributor where it was lined up at. So it kind of takes out the guesswork on doing the timing. So hopefully it was close before, and if it was close before, it's still going to be close. So we can go ahead and start our 3 bolts back into that. And again, these are all 12mm. Looks like they've done some engineering with the wiring on this. I guess the plug came off of the harness or something for the Vtec solenoid, so they just hardwired it, but I'm gonna see if I can fix that. So we're gonna be replacing both gaskets on the Vtec solenoid, so it's the one that goes between the top and the one in between where it goes mounts to the head. I bought this little Gates kit. It comes with both of the gaskets, and I bought this off Rock Auto. Most of all these seals came off Rock Auto. But it has all three styles because there's two different style uppers. So it has the one with the filter and the one without, and then has the one that goes between the solenoid and the head. So it's pretty cool. So we just use a 10 millimeter, and we'll zip out this off the head. It's 3 10 millimeter bolts, one right here, one right here, and one right here. And they're all three the same length, so it will spill a little oil. I know this probably isn't the best angles on a lot of this stuff on this video, but just kind of doing the best I can to get it on the camera and be able to work and doing all this by myself, because it is kind of difficult to try to be a one-man show. I just do the best I can. All right, so on the gasket, or for the solenoid where it mounts to the head, it's probably going to be brittle too, because it looks like it, yeah, like it had been leaking. So we'll just pry that out with our little gasket pick. All right, so got most of that out. Take a little bit of brake cleaner and just hose that off. All right, so then the new gasket, the filter, see how it has the little filter on it? It always goes towards the towards the solenoid. So it just goes on here, about like that. Okay, and then we'll put our 3 bolts back in it. Again, they're all the same size, so you don't have to worry about which one goes where. And torque 8.7 foot-pounds if you're torquing. So now we got to take off these 3 on top to replace the top gasket. All right, so the little gasket's right here in the top, and this one is the one without the filter. Like, there's two variations, like I'd mentioned. So one has the filter and one doesn't. So that one's also pretty brittle. All right, so then we just get our gasket without the filter, put it in there like so, and right back on. All right, so all 3 of these bolts are also the same size, so don't have to worry about mixing them up. 8.7 foot-pounds if you want to torque it. All right, so our last gasket for the engine that we're going to be installing is the valve cover gasket. And again, I went with a MAHLE gasket. It comes with the tube seals. There's the part number. All right, and it comes with the tube seals, actual cover gasket, and it comes with the new little washers. So I just got it flipped over here on a box. And this gasket has a little notch back here, so we had to make sure that we get this notch lined up with it, and I had it. So that's on. Put our tube seals on. They just kind of push right in. I don't usually ever put any kind of silicone on the tube seals. Usually they seal pretty good. We are going to put just a dab of RTV right here on these corners where they mount to the head. Just make sure they seal good. So Just a dab of black RTV on each one of those corners. That's all we need for that. I'm gonna clean this surface off on the cylinder head first. Just wipe it down all the way around, just to make sure we get the best seal possible. And wipe off the tubes where the spark plugs go in, just again making sure we get the best seal possible. Just like that. And then we'll take our new seals and they go on all these little studs. And we'll put the nuts on them and we'll be good to go. Alright, we'll tighten all those down by hand. About 8.7 foot-pounds. And we put the spark plug wires back on and we're good to go. Alright, so we got the plug wires on there, got the new spark plugs installed also. And then here's our new plug cover. Well, not a new one, repainted. I do plan to come back and do these letters in black too, so I think that would help it pop a little bit. I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that's pretty much the look of it. So I'm gonna get that plug cover tightened down and get the oil cap on, and should be ready to reinstall it before too long. So anyways, that's gonna wrap up this video as far as doing the reseal. I know it's an extremely long video. If you've watched any part of it, I appreciate it. And I hope it's able to help you out to get your B18C1, your B16, or B18C5, whatever. Get it resealed and hopefully stop all your oil leaks. So I hope that all the part numbers and stuff are able to help you, and just showing you what tools to use and all that kind of stuff. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out the rest of the series, and yeah, hope to see you on another one. Peace.